All right, so you should get the pop-up there about recording the meeting. Again, I am Nathan Fensel. I am a kindergarten teacher at Ashburn Elementary School. I've been with the county for 4 years now. This is my 9th year teaching. My background is in early childhood education and also special education. So equity is at the forefront of everything that I do, especially with my younger students. But I also am an inclusion teacher as well. So all right. So let's get started today. The first thing, our objectives for today. They are define equity, understand the difference between equity and equality, because even today still they're skewed and sometimes interchanged for each other. And we're going to discuss resources and ways to present equity to early learners. All right, so the meeting norms, I always like to start with this. This is an entire thing about equity. It's okay to feel uncomfortable. Things that we may have done in the past, we may be looking at ourselves, looking in ourselves. It's okay to feel uncomfortable. Everyone's voice in this meeting is valid. Nobody, myself included, is going to diminish anybody's voice. Show sensitivity to everyone's backgrounds. We don't know where everybody comes from, so we want to be sure that we're understanding of everyone from all different walks of life. All right, our main starter question today. What is equity? What does it mean to be equitable specifically in the classroom? So I'm going to pause my share here. And I'm going to share a link in the chat. And I want you to tell me what you feel an equitable classroom means. Give these people 1 second to join, and then I'll put it in the chat. Okay, I'm going to share the link in the chat here. There you go. Click the link. It'll open up to a Slido, and just tell me in 1 word, 2 words, a sentence, what it means to have an equitable classroom. Oh, there we go. The link should work now. My apologies, guys. I'll put it back in here just in case it did not. I'm going to resume my share here so you guys can see on this Slido. It brings up all of your feedback, what you guys are coming up with. I'm seeing fairness, opportunity for all, uplift and support, representation is big overall, meeting all students' needs. The larger words over here are what you guys are coming up with overall, what you guys are, the big things that you guys are stressing here. High expectations for all, representation. All right. So it looks like you guys have a background and a basis in this as well. So we're going to have a good time today. Representation is huge, and having high expectations for all of our students. So now that we've kind of defined equity, or what we feel is equitable, what is the actual definition of equity when it comes to education? So according to the National Equity Project, educational equity means that each child receives what they need to develop their full academic and social potential. So with younger students, this can sometimes be hard to touch on, but throughout today, I'm hoping I can give you guys some skill set to really help your younger students understand. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about the difference between equity and equality. In Merriam-Webster's dictionary, equality is defined as regarding or affecting all objects in the same way, impartial. Equity is defined as freedom from bias or favoritism. So you can see the difference a little bit in the definitions, but us looking at this, it kind of helps me to understand just telling a student isn't always going to help them understand that what equity truly is. So above, I have a cartoon strip that has been presented all through. It came out during the pandemic, and it's been kind of resurfaced a lot during the pandemic and has come back again and again. It explains our difference between equality on the left and equity on the right. So to describe it, I found a little video that really pinpoints and touches on it. So we're going to watch that to start, and then we'll get into the meat of today's lesson.
Before we can talk about equity versus equality, I want to first define diversity. At Inclusive Communities, we like to say diversity in its simplest definition means differences. We all have differences, from our glasses to our weight to how much money we have. That is diversity, and no matter how much people say it's hard to find diversity, that's not true. Diversity exists. It's about taking the time to acknowledge its existence and work to ensure action is taken to embrace these differences, not alienate them. Equality is often equated to fairness and sameness, and is based in the misconception that we all have the same needs and the same solution will work for everyone. Equity is based in access and opportunity, with the understanding that we each start with different advantages and disadvantages, and thus have different needs to attain access and opportunity. To understand equity, we have to compare it to equality. Now, I love this equity versus equality graphic, as it's the best explanation of the difference between the two. On the equality side, you see that we've got three individuals: our tall guy, our short girl, and our friend in the wheelchair. And you see that they're all trying to watch this baseball game, but there's this fence. With equality, they've each been given a box to use to be able to see the game. But obviously that's not working, because our tall friend is now super tall and sees very clearly over the fence, while our short girl can just barely see, and she's still kind of on her tiptoes and struggling to see the game, while the person in the wheelchair can't see it all and they can't even get on the box. On the equity side of this picture, you can see that now we've given each individual exactly what they need to be able to see the game. The person in the wheelchair has a ramp so they can clearly get to the top and see the full game. The shorter girl has 2 boxes, which is what she needed to comfortably be able to see, and the tall person has no boxes at all because they didn't need the extra assistance in the first place. Equity is a process, which means it is continuous. We can't gain equity by changing just one thing. For example, the equity side of this photo shows our friend in the wheelchair has gained equity at this fence, but the work is not done. True progressive equity is about how can we ensure that he has equitable opportunities at all of the hypothetical and real fences in his life. Equity requires power, resources, and social responsibility to work hand in hand to change the structures and provide opportunities to those who were institutionally left out, marginalized, or oppressed. Equity is hard, but it's essential for us to make change in the lives of those who have been historically depicted as less than. From individuals with disabilities like physical, developmental, and mental, to people living in poverty without access to food or education or healthcare. It's important for us to understand that there is a long history of discrimination, which has created the present day inequities which don't allow these individuals the same access to opportunity than those who don't have those differences. One of the greatest gifts that we give to students that we work with is the opportunity to share their story and to find value in their voice. And this increases awareness and a sense of empowerment. Everyone has their own stuff. Everyone is going through something that challenges their emotional and physical capacity to be great, but there is power in connection. So now here's your challenge. Be brave and seek out those opportunities to have authentic conversations with those that are different than you. Find out what makes them unique and what brings them joy. Then you do the same. Share your story because you have value as well. Now you've built community. And with community, we have power. We is always stronger than me.
So, one of my big takeaways from that video is that equity needs to continue. We can be equitable in one circumstance, but how do we make sure that equity continues for our students throughout every aspect of their day and every aspect of their school career? In my opinion, one of the ways is making sure that our students understand what it is. So why do we strive for equity instead of equality? Because although we're all equal, that does not mean our situations are the same. Equity's need in school is huge. It's really what's going to take that equitable account for all of our students. It's what's going to make sure that they see it through their entire educational career. We want to make sure that our students understand it. So in a classroom with students from all different backgrounds, socioeconomic statuses, and possible disabilities, teaching students the value of equity will not only help them to succeed, but it will also create equitable-minded leaders for our future. And that's what we want, ultimately. It's the only way we're going to really affect change. So, to the big question, how do we teach equity to young children? So, the first thing that I always like to pin down for everybody is don't shy away from the subject. Especially now, the students are hearing it everywhere. They're hearing it out in the news, in the media. And it can seem really big and really heavy for them, but framing it in a way that our young students can understand is so important for them. They need to hear it. They need to get examples of equity and how to be equitable human beings. And they can understand the term as well. I have students in my class that are already saying, we're equitable. they know what it means. They know what it, they want to use it. They want to please. So they want to learn at this age. So it's really important that we start them early. The second point, make sure you use explicit learning opportunities. With students of this age group, with big overarching topics like this, a lot of times it can get kind of wound into other things. With students of preschool, kindergarten, first grade age, we need to make sure that the learning opportunities are explicit. In my classroom, I'm teaching them explicit lessons where we discuss equity, discuss the term, discuss why the term fair that they've learned in the past is not necessarily a term that we use in our classroom. That we're equitable, and presenting it to them in a way that it kind of, for lack of a better term, hits them over the head, instead of just wrapping it into readings or things like that. So one way that I found, as I'm sure many of you have also happened to become during the pandemic, I became extremely addicted to TikTok. So, so I have found myself on the educational side, and this lesson is one that I use with my students. It's how I get the talk started at the beginning of the year. I do it probably the first week, second week of school, and it's called the Band-Aid lesson. It was originally presented on TikTok, though at least the one that blew up was by Amy's Adventures. So I'm going to go ahead and play this from her, and we'll talk about it after she's done kind of explaining how she does it.
How I teach fairness to my elementary schoolers using Band-Aids. On the first day of school, I ask my students to raise their hand if they've ever scraped their elbow. As you can imagine, they all raise their hands. So I get a Band-Aid, I pick on one student to tell us the story of how they hurt their elbow. Then I put the Band-Aid on their elbow. Next, I ask who's ever bumped their head. More hands go up, I have someone tell me a story, and then I say, I am so sorry you hurt your head. Here's a Band-Aid for your elbow. The kids are a little confused at this point. Next, I ask who's ever scraped their knee. More hands go up, and I say, I am so sorry you scraped your knee. Here's a Band-Aid for your elbow. At this point, the kids are super confused. I'll stop my lesson and we'll have a conversation about how even though I gave everyone the exact same thing in the exact same way, it wasn't helpful to them. And in conclusion, fair doesn't mean everyone gets the same thing. Fair means that everyone gets what they need to be successful. After this lesson, students are much more understanding when their friends with diabetes need an extra snack, when their friends with autism need noise-canceling headphones, when their friends with ADHD need a fidget spinner and they can't have one. It helps with everything. How I teach.
All right. So, as she said, she puts it in terms that students can clearly understand. They've all had cuts, scrapes, bumps before. And when I do it with my students, presented in that explicit way, you can see the wheels turning. You can see it really click with them after the second time you put a Band-Aid on somebody else's elbow, when they said that they got a scrape on their leg or on their foot or on their head. The students really start to understand what that means, and that, oh, yes, it would be fair if everybody got a Band-Aid in the same spot, but it's not going to help everybody in that way. So again, it's presenting it to them in these ways that will help them to understand it. So after I present this lesson, I'm making sure that I'm using it in all other aspects of time. in our classroom. So the third point I have, don't fear redefining. Dictionaries have different volumes and editions because things change. So in my classroom, we discuss what equitable means at the beginning of the year. We use that word equity, but by the end of the year, my goal is to get them to understand that that word fair that they already know, truly being fair is being equitable, giving everybody what they need, no matter their difference, making sure everybody has what they need. So by the end of the year, we kind of take it and we'll wrap it into that word. And when I ask my students, what is fair? They're able to tell me everybody gets what they need. It's equitable. That's what's fair. So the next point, embrace the teachable moments. So this is probably one of the, after presenting it explicitly with the Band-Aid lesson, with just a reading and talking about it, after explaining it explicitly, this is the part that's going to teach them the most. I know we all learned about teachable moments in our college courses, but once we got into the field, they threw curriculum after curriculum after curriculum, test, all this stuff at us. And if you're like me, you kind of feel bogged down and you're like, I don't have time to be that teacher that I used to be. I don't have time to take these moments for my kids, but we really need to. There are things we can take in the curriculum. We can either rotate, rework, but we need to take that time to teach the students when they're ready for it. So the biggest thing with young learners is you're going to hear, that's not fair. Say, for example, excuse me, I gave one of my students a rocker for the carpet. Instantly, I had another student say, that's not fair. I want one. And I stopped. I stop everything. And that is the time for an equity lesson. The student is thinking about it. It's what is in the forefront of their mind right now. That is the time that you're really going to concrete and cement this in for them. So make sure you're stopping. If I understand that the curriculum is very mapped out, has time constraints, but there will always be time to make that up. We want our students to really understand how to be equitable human beings in the future and how to embrace each other and each other's differences. Okay, so the other question I always get is, are there any books for me to read that are age appropriate? These are a list of some of them. But if you notice at the bottom, there is a disclaimer. A lot of books that are out there are not specifically about equity. So there is a theme of equity in the book, but you really have to pull it out with the students and talk about it with them at the end to make that point known, to make the equity point known. One that I love to use, it's our fourth one down on the list here, Maddie's Fridge. It's on Storyline Online. My kids, I have the book and would love to read it to them, but as a lot of you know, the kids would rather listen to a celebrity read it than me. So after Jennifer Garner reads it to them, we touch on and talk about pulling out that equity in the book and how they made things more equitable for Maddie. The story is about two little girls that come together and find the one little girl from a higher socioeconomic status realizes that her friend doesn't have just a full array of food in her fridge, like a grocery store all the time. And it's about that girl from the higher socioeconomic status realizing that not everybody has this and how they can make it so that those friends get what they need. But again, when you're reading, since explicit learning is the goal, make sure that you're looking at the books and pulling out how to frame equity for them with the story. Oftentimes I like to, I'll read the book beforehand. I have it in my my repertoire, and I'll kind of write a little note on the inside of the cover or on the inside of the book, just saying like where I'm going to hit and touch on equity with them, so that I'm able to pull it out in those teachable moments as well. So I have my repertoire of books, and I can just, in that moment when the kids are expressing the not understanding of equity, I can shift and teach it to them. Having these things ready and prepared, having them available to you and available at your fingertips is really going to help in the long run, to cement that vision in with your students. So this is a lot to front load to people. But my next point is any questions that you have, I'm here to answer. Let me know. Feel free to come off mute or raise your virtual hand if you have any questions. I will do my best to answer them for you. Well, so as I said, your big things are going to be that explicit teaching of the subject, presenting it to them. The Band-Aid lesson is honestly the best lesson that I found to use with them. It's the most concrete that they really understand at the beginning of the year. That's why there's not a lot of others. I've tried other lessons, but that is the one that the students really, it really speaks to them. Can you guys still hear me? Or is the speaker still out? Okay. Sorry. All right. So if there's not any questions, I'm going to move on to this last slide. This one I'm going to send you guys the slides. I'll put them in the chat for you guys to save. But save my email. Again, my name's Nathan Fensel. My email's on here. If you guys have a question or want to just talk back and forth about how to implement it in your classroom, I'm here and I'm always open. I love talking to people and love helping. It's my main goal and my main purpose in life. So if you guys have any questions or have anything that you think of that may work, or even any suggestions for me, please feel free to reach out by email. I love feedback and love being able to talk and help each other. So I am going to stop my share here for a second, and I'm going to share in the chat. I will put a link to the slides for you guys to look at and hold on to. Oh, hold on. That is the wrong link. That's your Slido link. I don't know why my computer is acting so crazy today. So the last thing that I would love for you guys to do, we have an evaluation set up. And since you guys are the second group, if you could do an evaluation for me as one, and then resubmit another evaluation for the PLCamp as a whole. They really want your feedback because we want to try and keep this going, apparently. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Here is there's the link to the evaluation. Melissa, I am a teacher in the county. I work at Ashburn Elementary School. I'm a kindergarten teacher. I have worked with a little bit the equity department, but I haven't really gotten involved with them very much. And the slides are from Canva. It's just a design on Canva. So thank you. I try and make it engaging for everybody. All right, so once you guys are finished, I'll go ahead and let you guys go today. I know it's a little bit early, but I'm a teacher too, so I understand your time is valuable as well. Thank you guys so much for coming. I hope you guys learned something, and again, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always available, and I love feedback and hearing from you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.